this idea of imposter syndrome. That is a very common experience that people have. Mainly, it is more prominent among women for, I think, intentional reasons. We've been made to feel this way.
Yeah. Women and other
Yes.
marginalized communities as
Yes.
well.
It's part of the scheme. And,
Mhm.
regardless of their actual achievements or their accomplishments, they still feel this way. And so we were thinking about putting this episode together of this, intersection between imposter syndrome and human design, and how, could understanding your human design offer you some ways to like navigate and potentially, I'm going to say in air quotes, overcome imposter syndrome. Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, your human design guide.
And I'm Haley, on this journey with you to uncover the power of human design.
Together, we're here to explore how embracing your authentic self is the ultimate path to a life of more freedom and fulfillment.
Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Well, hello, Haley. How you doing? Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good.
We just said we haven't talked to each other face to face here in a couple weeks. We were doing that batching thing, and then I ran out of episodes, and now we got to do it again, real time.
Usually how it goes.
But I said, "Oh, look at you! You got a haircut." And you said, "Yeah, I got mine cut yesterday." I said, "Oh, me too." Great minds think alike. We were scheduled on the same day. So,
Yeah.
there we are, always vibing. But anyways, so it's good to see you. And I had a couple things come up that I wanted to share with you and with you who are listening. I have a nighttime ritual I'm going to be very honest about. Nighttime after dinner, after I've made dinner, because I make dinner most every night. That is my dad, and we eat kind of late, especially this time of year, because your dad likes to be outside until it's dark. So usually we eat dinner around 8:00, and then we eat, get everything cleaned up. Then it's couch time, and we usually watch some kind of show together or whatever. It's honestly one of my favorite times of the day. I mean, some people don't like to admit, especially if they're in spaces that they don't like to admit to watching TV, but I love watching TV. I don't do it all day long. It is literally reserved till the end of the day. It is my wind down. And I think you probably read books, but you read at night, or do you just read whenever you have time?
It's typically, if I read, it's at night, but I have to be awake enough.
Okay, fair enough.
Like if I'm really tired, then I'll just watch TV or I'll crochet.
But yeah. What's it like being retired? I'm just kidding.
I wish I was completely retired.
Sounds like what I should be saying. I'll read a good book if I can stay awake, or I'll crochet. Anyways, it is the highlight of my day. I get to watch a show. But one of the shows I just finished up was on Hulu called How to Die Alone, which was really good. I highly recommend. But I started watching this new show on Netflix called Nobody Wants This. Have you seen it?
I've seen it up on Netflix, but I haven't watched it.
It's got Kristen Bell in it, and it's a rom-com kind of thing. But I have to laugh because she and her sister are podcasters. They have a podcast, and of course, the myth of the world of podcasting is quite hilarious, because I mean, is she married to Dax Shepard? Is that who she's married to? Kristen Bell? Which,
yes, I believe so. The guy from Scrubs.
No. Dax Shepard? No.
Yeah.
No, he's not in Scrubs, is he?
Yes. She's married to the guy from Scrubs. 90% positive.
We got to put a pin in it.
Hold on.
Kristen Bell.
Husband, Dax
He was not in
Shepard.
Scrubs. Who was he in
Yes,
Scrubs?
he was.
No, that's That's the other guy.
Oh my God, they're freaking twins. Zach Braff.
I knew it wasn't him.
I swear. Looking at these pictures of them side by side, it's again the
I just saw
celebrities that
Zach
look like
Braff
each
in the
other.
show Bad Monkey, and he did not look good. Yeah, I don't think he was supposed to, but anyways, he looked older. Well, anyway, it makes sense that their version of what podcasting is like is because her husband, Dax Shepard, in real life, is host of one of the probably top. Yes, the
Is he the
armchair expert.
armchair
Yeah, that's
expert? Is
his.
that
Yeah,
his?
so he's
Okay.
very well
Yeah.
known in the podcasting world. So of course his podcast is worth millions, I'm sure. And in this show, they start off there. She and her sister have a podcast, which is called Nobody Wants This, and of course it's just the two of them gabbing about sex and life and everything. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm sure there's like that. And of course they're being acquired, and all this stuff. And I'm like. Reminds me of like Only Murders in the Building podcasting, which the majority of podcasting is me and you type people. We're just normal folks.
Yes.
Trying to talk about things we want to
normal.
talk about, maybe add some value in the world. I mean, at least I feel like we're trying to add value in some way. Not that other podcasts aren't.
We're not just
But I
talking
had
to
to
each
laugh because it
other.
was like one of the first couple of scenes. She and her sister just curled up on the couch together, having a conversation with a couple of microphones, acting like they're talking normally. And I was just like, my experience is not like that. It's a conversation, but we don't have the luxury of sitting on the couch next to each other with our microphones, which it just looked funny to me. But I know there's a lot of podcasts out there, but they're not the majority of them. So that just made me laugh to think about it. But it's pretty good so far. But then the other thing, this is more I want to talk about. It's human design related. So observations in real life about working through, let's just say, your strategy of for me as a generator. So, I was working at a flower shop and I stopped working there in December of last year. And it's been great. I've been enjoying not working there. But this summer has altered the landscape a little bit in our household. Your dad has, crashed his motorcycle, broke his arm, got all these medical bills coming in because we are uninsured. We are one of the millions of Americans who are uninsured, but we're getting by. And so between Lori, my ex-boss, who needed a little bit of help here and there, and we could actually use a little extra income here and there. I've only worked like a couple hours, like 10 hours this week, just kind of helping her out with some book work and stuff. And so for sacral types out there, or anybody who's, maybe doing something you don't really want to be doing, but you're doing it, like you make the choice to do it. When I first started working there, I didn't know anything really about human design at all. I didn't know how to enter into something correctly, like responding to something, that kind of thing. Always initiating or trying to initiate things. And, I had been, when I thought about this, when she asked me if I could help her, there is the sacral response of like, no, really, because my sacral knows that this is not really where I want to be. However, I'm also an emotional authority. You have to sometimes look at the bigger picture as well when it comes to sacral response, because yes, I want to have more money coming in the short term in order to help defray the costs of some of these medical bills. Certainly helps, right? So I'm trying to pay attention. I'm keeping my boundaries. I'm being very clear about the expectations I had this time was, you're gonna pay me more. That was the first one. If you want me here, I'm not here all the time. You're gonna have to pay me this amount, which she agreed to. And I'm being it's so hard for me to not just say, "Oh, you need help with that," or, "Oh, are you gonna need this or that?" Like, I have to keep my mouth shut. I am learning to, like, keep my mouth shut and not offer more than what I have what I have agreed to do. You know what I mean? Because like I said, she's like family. I can do it, but I can feel the push and pull within me of like, this is not where you're supposed to be, and you know that, and I'm aware of it, right? But I have made the choice to be there. But it's just interesting to have a different observation of it now, of like how it feels. And with that awareness of the choice I made to be there and why I'm there, and knowing that I'm not going to, like, somebody said today, "Oh, I heard you helping out." I said, "I am not back." I told her I was I'm doing gig work is what I'm calling it.
It's called
Exactly.
freelancing.
And and so it is, yeah, it's interesting to observe with a new awareness. And just, I don't know if that helps anyone out there who finds themselves in that situation, because I think sometimes we paint this picture that, human design is the answer for everything, which it pretty close is. But I mean, there's still life, and it's still understandable that you're going to be in situations.
Yeah. It's not always gonna be sunshine and rainbows because
Mhm.
everything that you have to do is gonna be perfect
Mhm.
for you and
Well,
all of
that's right. It's
this.
kind of like, you start meditating and it's good for you, but you're still going to have your moments of, like, not being caught. I mean, nobody that let's say, if you still have to be in the world with other people and things that are beyond your control, then you're probably going to fall out of balance a lot. It's like you could meditate as much as you want, but unless you're up there living in that cave by yourself, you're not going to be in this perfect state all the time. The goal is to try to have the least amount of resistance in life, but then also to have the tools to understand that when you are in situations or places where it's more challenging for you, you can lean back and be like, okay, either it's temporary or I know how to handle this. Awareness is key, of just seeing yourself, understanding how you're feeling, and not just operating on autopilot. I guess is my point is, you
Yeah.
know, 2 steps forward, one step back sometimes, so anyways, I just wanna let
Good. Do you feel like I have a question with it. Do you feel like even though, you're technically going against your
strategy.
authority on it, does it
Mhm.
feel yes. Does it feel like less frictiony because of this understanding, the boundaries, like kind of knowing what you know now, does it feel
Yeah.
less bad because you said no?
It
Went
yeah,
against?
well, I think what it has done is made me aware of or contemplate what my boundaries are in this case, because I know that it's technically not something that lights me up. Let's say the work I do there, like, I'm not like,
Mhm.
whoo, I'm excited to go in and help. Now, when I'm there, if I can keep busy doing stuff, that's fine, because it's the use of my energy and everything. And it's not like it's a terrible place to be. It's just not my future. And so it does help, like,
Mhm.
knowing that I've now, in an informed way, made this choice. And I know that it's not, um, that sacred hit of like, ooh, I'm interested in this, but it is also allowed me to reevaluate what my boundaries are, what my expectations are, and go into it clear headed. Because I also have the 2946 channel, which is all about, responding. Yes, it should be a yes, but then also like just going through the process, setting expectations, but then just letting it go. Because in this moment right now, it's not all the time. Like when I left there today, I was anticipating her asking me to help her again, but she didn't, and that was great. And I just like left. I didn't say anything. I know she had all, stuff going on tomorrow. I'm like, good luck. See you later. And I mean, it doesn't feel great, but it's kind of like, we all have obligations at times, with our families, or say with, if you're in school, or, there's things that definitely don't light you up as a generator that are still part of your life, right? That you, when I say have to
Mhm.
do, because we're all still learning about this whole like sacral response, but say you are in college or university and you're learning human design, you can't all of a sudden just be like, nah, I don't want to go to physics class and I don't want to do this because it doesn't, well, okay, you got to come up with a different plan. Maybe it's helping you reevaluate what's important to you, but you can't always just shut it all off. So I guess I'm just trying to share that, I myself am somebody that, we all do things sometimes that we're not necessarily excited about, but we, with the intention of this is helping me in a different way, kind of thing, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. So just been
Yeah.
observing, just thoughts, been thinking about it, so that's thought I'd share. That helps anybody. But what I really want to talk about today is something we've been thinking about for a while, right? We've been talking about this. And it's a big one. And I think most people can relate to it. It's this idea, I'm going to say, concept of imposter syndrome, because it is something that you hear a lot, especially if you're in the entrepreneur space. A lot of people say, "Oh, I have imposter syndrome. I'm a fraud. I'm afraid everybody's going to find out I'm a fraud." And it goes back also to that thing we talked about the last time, was that when we kind of brought it up last episode, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Do you remember?
I remember the word, but I am drawing a blank at the moment. Why don't you refresh me?
It was that of the thing that usually people who are overqualified tend to downplay themselves. They don't believe that they have
Right.
undervalued themselves,
Undervalue.
and then those who are really underqualified tend to overvalue themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
I
that's
recall now.
essentially kind of sorta, well, it's a segue into this imposter syndrome thing, and I first started, well, I mean, I am guilty of this. I mean, they call it a phenomenon or a psychological pattern, I guess they call it, phenomenon type of thing of, you know
Well, the first people that really studied it called it a phenomenon. They didn't call it a syndrome.
phenomenon. But anyways, it's where people just really doubt their accomplishments and fear being exposed as a fraud. Like, who is she? Who does she think she is?
You don't
Really,
belong.
That's why I think everybody loves that quote so much by Marianne Williamson, which says that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. And that quote often gets attributed to Nelson Mandela. It goes on, but it's from her book Return to Love. And it's a Marianne Williamson quote, and it hit, I think the way it hits people the way it does is because everybody understands that feeling, of like, who am I to shine? Who am I to do this? I'm nobody. I'm not important enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. Like, raise your hand if you're in the club, right? And
let me just shrink into this corner.
And it feeds into is this idea of imposter syndrome. That is a very common experience that people have. Mainly, it is more prominent among women for, I think, intentional reasons. We've been made to feel this way.
Yeah. Women and other marginalized communities as well.
It's part of the scheme. And, regardless of their actual achievements or their accomplishments, they still feel this way. And so we were thinking about putting this episode together of this, intersection between imposter syndrome and human design, and how, could understanding your human design offer you some ways to like navigate and potentially, I'm going to say in air quotes, overcome imposter syndrome. We both watched this video when we were talking about just now. You were saying about the marginalized people, and I said, "Oh, it's intentional." The scheme.
It's a scheme.
And there was this amazing video. I'll put the link in the show notes of the this 2023 last year, the Smith College commencement speech. That's very hard to say. Yeah, the speaker
It's a lot
was
of words.
Reshma Saujani, and she is the founder of Girls Who Code and lots of other organizations that are about girls and women's
Mhm.
empowerment. Um, and
Okay.
she gave this great speech about imposter syndrome and how it's a scheme, right?
Yes.
That
Mhm.
um did you want to talk about bicycle face? Do you remember what she was talking about bicycle face?
I think well enough to talk
Okay,
about
so
bicycle
she
face.
talked about this affliction of women everywhere in the
Yeah.
late 1800s, I guess, early 1900s with the invention of the bicycle.
Yeah, around the time, particularly around the time of the bicycle that had two wheels
Yes.
of the same size. Because originally there was the giant wheel in
Why
front and the one in the back.
I
She said
why
around the
did they
time
ever
they
think that was a
decided
good idea?
I have no idea. It makes
And
no
so tall.
sense.
And
And
how did they
a
get up
man
there?
invented
And
it.
why? Oh, I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's I don't understand. But then she said in her speech, they decided that two wheels are the same size, and she's like, "Wow, isn't it amazing what equality does?" But but so that would when the bicycle of the same size wheels, when that one
More
particularly
manageable.
became popular in North America, yeah, North America and Europe, women started really riding
Mhm.
those ones. And there was this illness
Yeah,
that was
it's terrible,
afflicting
it's
women,
terrifying.
and it was this horrible, horrible illness, terrifying. The symptoms were like
Mhm.
flushed cheeks, a clenched jaw, a face that could
It's
be
like me on any
stony
given day
or anxious.
when I'm not riding a bicycle. I have resting bicycle face.
Yeah, she said. Yeah, she said instead of before there was resting bitch
Yeah.
face, there was resting
Yeah,
bicycle
guilty.
face. But it was even though it was not just women that were riding bikes, the bike face
Mhm.
only affected
Mhm.
women. Only. It was they couldn't
Mhm.
understand why. Why is it women? But it was because men were
Yeah.
afraid of women, basically, because
Road bikes.
suffragettes, they
Mhm.
could go town to town on their bikes. They would affix their signs
Love it.
to the front of their
The first
handlebars.
bumper stickers.
And so they could go further. Love it. Yeah.
Mhm.
But they could go further, and women were gaining their freedom because of this bike. They didn't have to wait for men to
Yeah.
show up on their
Mhm.
horse, as the
Mhm.
commencement speech said. And so men were
Yeah.
legitimately afraid. That's why we had
Yeah, because
bike face.
God knows a woman doesn't wanna look bad.
Mhm. Oh, but then it was later in the speech where she said it, but I want to bring it up now. The who
Mhm.
debunked bike
As a woman.
face? I forget the woman's name, but she was the first woman doctor that was admitted to the
Mhm.
American Medical Society, and she
Mhm.
was the one that debunked it, and not by saying what caused it, but she basically not attacking bike face, but
Mhm.
attacking the system that
Yes,
created bike
which she
face.
goes on to say in that commencement speech about how you don't need to overcome imposter syndrome because there's nothing wrong with you. It's the system
Mhm.
that has been designed to make you feel that way, to make you question yourself and your value because, like you said, women and marginalized people. Now there are men that, say they have imposter syndrome, but I don't I don't agree. No, I just wanna say that. I know there are, but what I mean is it's usually
The
yeah, it is
majority
women because
is.
we are still in this transition from towards equality, really. I mean, N a lot of these
Mhm.
institutions or men in these institutions might say, "What?" Like, "What do you want? We're equal, we have equality, you're allowed to work here, we can have the same job." But like she says, no, that's not the problem. The problem is not, because they were talking about in, like, the workplace, women feel that they have to shore themselves up and make themselves feel better and, like give themselves a rah-rah speech and you getting all these tips, but she's like, "No,
Mhm.
it's not you. Power
Power
pose your way to the
pose your
top.
way to
No,
the
it's not
top.
you. They just need to pay you the same amount that they pay a man." It's just like systems are in place to make you
Mhm.
feel this way. But that does not take away from the fact that people still feel this way, right? It's still an issue.
Mhm.
And even though she can bring this light onto it that it is not a real thing, technically, it is still something that a lot of people struggle with. So I
Mhm.
think we should take a look at, what can cause this besides just saying it's a system, it's a scheme. But then how can
Mhm.
looking at your design actually help you also just, disperse the myth of imposter syndrome? And I would say, like anything else,
Mhm.
it's a process. It's like, I think it can be worked at, but it certainly helps when you know your design. So a lot of times people attribute, or when they are in the throes of this imposter syndrome, they often think it's the outside world that, there's external factors like luck or timing rather than their own skills or ability that gets them where they are, correct?
Mhm.
And this one article I was reading about imposter syndrome was talking about how, for some people it can be motivating. They don't, which is probably the men, to be. I don't mean to make a
Mhm.
generalization like that, but I do. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Because some people feel that need to prove. Probably the open wills out there, are like, yes, I need to prove my worth and all this other stuff, and it can be a source of motivation, but it's like it's a never-ending cycle of, like, always feeling like you have to work harder than anyone else or always over-preparing, like you've got that,
Mhm.
big presentation coming up or whatever, so you're just continuously, like, trying to work it and rework it, not from a sense of, like, I think you know the difference between, "I wanna do a good job," and, like, "I can't fuck this up," you know?
This is
Yeah,
not good
where
enough.
you're like, "I've gotta be
Yeah.
perfect. I've gotta get it done great." But because you don't want people to see that you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I've talked about how I thought about this podcast of starting one for over a year and a half, maybe 2 years before I ever did because of imposter syndrome. I'm like,
Mhm.
you know, "I don't know enough. I'm not gonna be able to talk about this. People are gonna know I have no idea what I'm talking about," and it's just they're
Nobody
they're
wants
not
to
gonna
listen to
listen,
this.
everybody's gonna know. And I also wanna point out as we're recording this, it is what is today?
Mhm.
October 4th, and I think it's,
Yes.
line 3 day of gate 48, the well, which is,
Mhm.
you know, where you know more than you think you know, but you just are afraid that you don't know enough, especially if you don't have the other gate 16, which is also me. I feel like everybody's gonna really get to know me this month because I have all my dates. Oh, yeah. This
Isn't
is
this like
spleen
the
month.
spleen
October is
month?
spleen month. We're gonna make it t let's hey, let's make put that in your Etsy
Right.
shop. October is a spleen month.
October is spleen month.
Splenic awareness month. Oh, we get in trouble for that.
Oh, you would be like, "Okay."
Sorry. Anyways, I don't know. You tend to like
So
when we're talking about that motivation, hard work, over
mhm,
worrying about everything, proving all this stuff that you have to do. It'll just keep cycling. And then you
mhm.
will think that any success you had was because of all your yeah, it was a
It
fluke,
was a
right.
fluke. Okay, so, like, what are what are let's look at some of the signs of imposter syndrome. I feel like we've kind of
Mhm,
been touching on them, but, like, really
mhm. Well, we
diving into
kinda just
them.
talked about the one there of, like, thinking that it was, like you said, just a fluke, or you just got lucky, or
Mhm,
just got by the skin of your teeth, which is really that inability to really recognize your own success and your achievements and you're giving your power away to someone else saying, well, it's not because, I'm fabulous and all this other stuff. It's because, maybe they're not smart enough or not smart enough. They haven't seen through me yet, kind of thing. But, it's not really, I didn't do it, by my own merits. I just got lucky.
I just fooled
Yeah.
them.
So that inability to like really internalize your own success is a good sign of imposter syndrome. Kind of what we just said, also fear of being exposed, always worrying that others will discover that you're not as competent as they think you are. Like I said, what I did, that I was worried putting
Been there a
myself out
lot.
there because we're like, especially when you put yourself, in the, I don't want to say especially, like, I'm not trying to, listen to me, put myself on a pedestal, but I'm just saying the arena I've entered into here of trying to share human design with people and teach them about it and their own design does feel, and being, let's say, a line one, I'm constantly in this area of like, I don't know enough, but I've also, because of my human design, gotten comfortable with being able to say things like, I don't think I know it all, you know? But still that fear of others discovering that you're not as, smart or as confident as you think you are is one big one that we all have, which we just talked about in the last month's perfectionism, gate 18, a lot of other things, but that's where it lives in the chart. Yeah, perfectionism. Maybe you set really high standards for yourself and then you feel like a failure because you don't meet those standards, right? You didn't do good enough. And even if your results were really good, you still want everything to be perfect.
You've like, yeah, I mean, when you set those almost sometimes unachievable standards, you've just shot yourself in the foot because you can never reach there. But what you do is still good, still great, but you can't see it because
Yeah,
it
and
didn't
that's
hit
just
your
a kind of
goal.
hiding mechanism of not feeling, good enough. If I make it perfect, they won't see I'm a fraud. You know what I'm saying? And I'll
I
say
won't
it.
see the cracks.
And being really sensitive to criticism, even constructive criticism, some feedback, that kind of thing, you could view it as confirmation of your inadequacy or your not measuring up kind of thing. And so you become hypercritical to it if somebody wants to give you any kind of feedback or whatever. You're just kind of like, it could be a sign that you're feeling that imposter ness. Imposterism. Imposterness. Not quite sure. And so going a little bit deeper into this, we're looking at this concept, there was this research cited by a Dr. Valerie Young. Did you take a look at that about different types of imposter syndrome, like how it can,
I did.
personality types? Is that the right word? Personality types, the kind of roles maybe you might take?
Yeah, one of those. I skimmed them, but I didn't really dive into them necessarily. I really had not even like thought or heard the concept of different
Me
types of
neither. I
imposter
always just thought
syndrome.
it was just my type of like, I'm not good enough. Nobody.
Nobody look at me.
Don't look at that man behind the curtain. Well, yeah, she theorized that there's these, it can be played out in these different roles, which, I mean, we're talking human design. So I love any kind of personality, like role typing. It's how we all see ourselves, right?
Wait,
This
she's
might see yourself in this kind of thing. Cause I don't know that I have to convince anyone that they have imposter syndrome, but I also think that a lot of times we don't recognize some of our self-sabotaging behaviors because they have become so normal to us that it is like truth, right? And so maybe by
right.
talking about it in this way and can say, "Oh, do you see yourself like this or has this come up?" You'd be like, "Oh, wait a minute. Maybe the shit I'm telling myself
Oh,
isn't true. Maybe it's just this construct, this, thing that has been set up to make me feel
Mhm.
this way. So yeah, so she talked about, well, we just talked about the perfectionist, right? That believing that no
Mhm.
matter what, you could have done better. You feel like you are an imposter because, you're not as good as others might think you are. So that's like if you are falling into that range. And I used to always think I did not fall into that because I definitely would not think anybody would look at me from the outside and be like,
Mhm.
whoa. Because I see like the perfectionist as someone who's just very well put together. Her kids have bows in their hair and she always wraps
Mhm.
the gifts.
That one very feels very much like the
Hmm.
TikTok moms, you know,
The
like
influencer
all
mom.
of
Yeah.
these perfect parties and their house is always perfect. Yeah, yeah. Like that's what I see kind of when I
Yeah. The
read
ones
about
that are
that
always trying
type.
to be perfect in the eyes of society, which I never fell into that
Mhm.
category. Definitely not. So I'm like, I'm not a perfectionist, but I that's not true because I do realize that I hold back sometimes because I don't think it's good enough. That the website doesn't look good enough or the colors aren't right yet or I didn't get the right font, like if you are building your own business or you have any kind of online presence, it's like the branding isn't right. Trying to get everything perfect is definitely a sign that you're just,
Mhm.
there's something there that you need to look at. Like, why are you trying so hard to make it look perfect? Here's another one,
Yeah.
the expert. Feel
Oh, hi you.
feels like an imposter because they don't know everything there is to know about a particular subject or a topic. They haven't mastered every step in the process because there's always more for them to learn. They don't feel like they've reached the rank of expert, which I tell you, Haley, I have looked up the definition of expert because when you move into the world of like trying
Mhm.
to brand yourself, so you let people know what it is you do, and you have to like put titles on
Mhm.
things, which has been very hard for me because I really don't know what to call myself because I would be like, oh, I don't want to call myself a coach or I'm not just a teacher or I'm kind of
Mhm.
a guide I've landed on. But one thing I
Mhm.
have thought about is this idea of expert. And because I do, if somebody says they're an expert, like, oh, they know everything, right? But when I look at the definition of what an
Mhm.
expert is, it's just someone has a field of expertise. It's something that they're very knowledgeable about in this area. And XYZ. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's true, but I still have a very hard time saying I'm a human design expert because that sounds
Mhm.
very, very like egotistical to me because there's so much I don't know. And anybody that tells you they
Mhm.
know everything about human design, they're lying to you. They have imposter syndrome because there's
There's this saying that like it's it's basically like the smartest person in the room or whatever is always learning.
yeah,
Like
you don't
you're
wanna be
never
the
gonna know
smartest person in
everything,
the
but
room.
if you're always learning,
Yeah.
that's where you wanna
Well,
be.
and that was something that I learned a long time ago in my yogic studies was, like, in meditation and stuff, is, like, the beginner mind is what they always talk about. Never follow a guru who claims to be a guru in the sense of, I know more than you, I know it all," because that's how cults are formed. 'Cause
I was gonna say good chance that's a
that's
cult.
right. The best teachers are always still learning and our students. And I'm definitely in
Mhm.
that camp of always learning because my line 1 won't let me stop.
Mhm.
So there's also the this one could be you lied to, the natural genius. In this, imposter syndrome type, you may feel, like a fraud simply because you don't believe that you are naturally competent or naturally intelligent. You if it this happens so much, but especially for your line 2s of feeling like you can't put yourself out there as some kind of expert or talent or whatever it is because you can't
Okay.
explain what it is that how you know what you do. It's just natural to you. And so it almost feels maybe, you tell me, earned in the sense that you don't recognize those talents. It's like, how could this be something I'm not important enough? I'm just, you know,
Oh, yes. I don't recognize that I have
mhm.
any talents at all. I'm like, I don't. I can't do anything. And then people will show me things that I can do and I'm good at. I'm like, oh, but I still, even to this day,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
might
see
feel that.
these as a talent. I'm like,
Yeah.
no one wants this.
I'm an imposter. I'm a fraud. They'll find out. I don't know. Another one she talks about is the soloist. It's just somebody who feels like, if they had to ask for help to reach a certain level or a certain status, then they must be an imposter. They should have been able to do it on their own. They should have been able to figure it out, answer their own questions, everything, right? I do know some people like that, and I guess I could even fall into that camp a little bit. I mean, you probably identify with all the I can almost identify with all of these so far of, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this I
Yeah.
don't feel good enough to say that." And then the last one she talked about here was the super person. This, I think, would be more of your type A imposter syndrome of the person that feels that they have to be the hardest worker or reach the highest levels of achievements possible. And if you don't, then you're a fraud. Like, if you haven't done everything and achieved everything, then you're just not good enough. You're a fraud. You shouldn't be in the room. I hate even saying these. They make me feel so sad on the inside to be like,
I
but it's,
know.
in one way or another, I think there are a lot of us out there, feel some or all of these. So I know we can't be alone here. But
Yeah.
there is, we talk about it all the time in human design. Like, this is why I love human design so much. One of the reasons is that it can help, like, bust these myths and these phenomenons and just, like, wide open and be like, it's not true. What you're thinking about yourself and what you have been thinking about yourself for maybe your whole life is not true because
I mean, she kept calling them in the commencement speech, the 3 big
Mhm,
lies of imposter syndrome.
mhm.
She kept calling them lies because
Yeah,
that's
they're
exactly
like,
what they are. Lies with
yeah,
all the
like I
head.
said, it is a way for you to doubt yourself in order to keep yourself small. The big lie. Like, we talk about it all the time, like what could cause things like this. A big one being, we've talked about conditioning, and which is, these
Mhm,
things that you pick up generally through your openness in your chart. So anywhere in your chart that is undefined as far as the centers go is where you
mhm,
are receiving energy from those around you, amplifying it, reflecting it back. But basically, it's where you're learning about these themes that are present in these centers. And, I just had a conversation with someone yesterday where we were talking about, having a level of awareness of what she learned in her family about work and the type of work. She's a creative, if it's valuable or not. And she's like, "I've done a lot of work around this," but as we talked about it more yesterday, it was like, "Oh, wow." If you think about those really early childhood memories, like we talked about this, the first 7 years of your life, you're the most impressionable. And,
mhm,
in your subconscious, there still could be things in there that are triggering some of this imposter syndrome stuff that you're not even fully aware of yet. But which is why it's good to, I think, look at the openness in your chart and play around with some of those things and some of those not self things. Like, am I looking for attention? Am I trying to prove myself? Am I hiding from the truth? Am I, all these questions you ask yourself through the not self process, because there is this conditioning through your families and through societies about what is success, or what does, someone who, well, I just said success. I'm trying to think of another word before besides success. What was your family's ideas about what a good girl is, or what a family looks like, or what kind of career you should have, so
mhm.
much. You didn't necessarily have this experience in our family, but I know lots of families that, it's like, I mean, we did expect you girls to go to college, which, that was important to me because we didn't finish college. And definitely did better for you
Uh,
guys, set you guys up with a little more early success in life than we had, financial success. But, looking at, some of those things, but there's also at the very fundamental level, you don't even have to go into as deep as knowing everything about the centers, but even if you just know your type, right? What kind of conditioning did you pick
mhm.
up uh, as your type that may be contributing to this imposter syndrome? So, like you're a projector.
Yes.
What do you think
Mhm.
I know you've had some of these feelings of imposter syndrome, everybody does, so we're gonna find out. How do you think, being a projector, some of that could have played out for you, like, not knowing that you're a projector and how you got through life to this point?
I think the biggest thing with that is, and I mean, I still kind of struggle with this now, is like feeling that if I'm not on the
Mhm.
same level as what I now know as generators, but like those kinds of people, if I'm not on the same level
Level
of
in what
them
regard?
or like producing
Output.
like
Mhm.
output that I'm doing, like how much work
Output.
I'm doing,
Mhm.
like that kind of stuff. If I'm like not on that level or above it, like I'm lazy. Like that's the biggest thing I think I've
So, would
always
you
struggled
hear
with.
people say, like, worked 8 hours yesterday, and you're like, "Oh, well, I only put in, like, 4." I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm just you know what I mean? Like, did you feel like you had to measure up to, like, the amount of work that they were doing, or
I mean, I don't, and I don't think this was even like a conscious thing I was doing. I just always felt like I had to be, like I always felt like I had to be
Mhm.
doing things. I had to be, like you say,
Mhm.
I was the most active and productive
You were.
person in the house growing up, like in like high school and stuff. But yet I'm the
Mhm.
projector of the family. So it's like I
Well, it's
felt like I had
probably
to be
your dad
like
than you.
doing everything.
Your dad can't stop either. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you felt like you always had to be producing or doing something because you're around
Mhm.
generators, which is what they do.
Yeah.
They make things, they do things, they
Mhm.
do the work.
Yeah. And I mean, even like also the amount, but like the quality of work that I was doing. Like I felt like I had, like, I don't know if it was felt or I wanted to be like, I wanted to be the
Mhm,
highest grades in the class. I liked getting my
mhm,
tests done and like having the high scores. Like that made me feel better.
mhm. Yeah, and so I think that's a big one for a lot of projectors is feeling that, why can't I, you know, keep up in the sense of, like, that energetic output, which you can, but it takes more of a toll on you because it's inconsistent, like,
Mhm.
I really wanna bust the myth on the whole, like, projectors, the perception that they are these, like, always, "Oh, I'm so weak, I have to rest." It's not a weakness thing, it's just a
Mhm.
protecting your energy thing more in the sense of recognizing
Mhm.
your own
Yeah.
energy and how important it is and how precious it is and how it's meant to, like, work smarter, not harder. I mean, how you heard that so much growing up from your one
Mhm.
teacher, "Work smart," and that probably made a lot
Yes.
of sense to you. Yes, let's do that because you did do that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously.
That's the kind of work I think a projector does
Yeah.
is like, I don't need to do all that, but what?
Oh, I have a funny story that kind of
Oh,
completely
okay.
contradicts
Why
that.
not?
I was I was emptying out, it's so related, but it's funny. I was, let's see, I was emptying something, a container of
Mhm,
something out of the fridge. Oh, it was I had
mhm,
finished a Greek yogurt container, and I was gonna throw it in the trash, but I was like, "Oh, let me rinse it out first." And then I rinsed it out, and Presley was standing in the kitchen, and I rinsed it out, and I threw it in the trash, and then we immediately tied up the trash, and he's like, "Why did you rinse out that yogurt?" And I was like, "I don't know, because it felt like I should." I didn't need to because we were taking the trash right
mhm.
out. It wasn't gonna smell, but I was like, "I don't know."
Right, you see the correlation?
Because I
Oh,
wasn't working
oh, I
smarter,
got
I
you.
was working harder.
Well, I mean, I would have done the same thing, but only because it should have been recycled. Maybe recycled plastic. Oh,
Well, you
no.
don't
They
recycle.
don't do that there. Mm,
No.
wow.
Mm-mm.
That's another story. Anyway, so
Oh,
like, what do you
I
think
think
then
so.
about, like, manifestors, as far as imposter syndrome? Like, what could make them at that type level, let's say, if you are a manifestor listening, of course, you could always give us a little comment or leave us a little message to let us know, to inform us on this. But what do you think, Haley, of like what could get a manifestor feeling like a fraud or an imposter, maybe?
I mean, I can see like anytime or a lot of times, like them trying to initiate something, they would kind of get shot down or get derailed because they weren't being received. They weren't,
Mhm.
informing people. So like they would feel like anything they tried to
Mm.
start wasn't right because it wouldn't work out. It
So the
would be so
self-doubt creeps in,
hard.
like, well, I thought this,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess always being told that because like you said, if they didn't know they are manifestors, they're not, informing in the environment that meeting
Mhm.
that resistance and not feeling like everybody else and doing it the way everybody else does, that people are gonna, perceive them in a different way. Was that some of the like, because when we were talking about the different types, like personality types, we were talking about like the super
Mhm.
person, which I think kind of that projector feeling, having to be the person to, work the hardest. Maybe for the
Yeah.
manifestor, kind of going back to that soloist thing, feeling like they had to ask for
Yeah.
help because, a manifestor, they give this impression that they are this solo entity. They even say, they have this repelling aura, all these things that I think makes a
Mhm. Yeah.
manifestor feel that they have to do everything themselves. But they are non-sacral beings, so they're not meant to do the work, right? They are meant to hand it off to
Yeah.
other people. So maybe if they had gotten in that place of feeling that they had that impulse, that urge to bring something through, and then always trying to bring it over the finish line, but they're not designed
Mhm.
necessarily to bring it over the finish line, but then that could get them feeling like they're not good enough, they're a fraud because they can't follow through,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Because they can't do it all by themselves. And they're like, "I
Yeah,
have to, but I
and that's also
can't.
that natural genius too, because they
You're
don't
not
always
supposed
know
to."
where these ideas and these impulse comes from, right? It's just there. And then, of course, our dear
Mhm.
manifesting generators, they fall in that same camp. They've been told that they don't finish things, and that, they might feel like an imposter because they can't finish everything. It's like I start this thing and then I stop, and
Mhm.
everybody's going to know that, I don't have it all together. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I can't always, do it like everybody else. Right. So that's a good thing. Now, generators, oh, our generators. So a lot of generators
Why
like,
why would
we
generate?
talk about the learning curve or the process of a generator. It's stair step, it's like you get a little bit of level of mastery and then you plateau and then you keep going. And,
Mhm.
I can find myself in that space sometimes of like, I'm never going to get there. I don't know enough, like we talked about, or I'm not good enough at this thing,
Mhm.
and I will just stop sometimes. And this is previous. I mean, I can still do that. I can feel myself when I'm getting to a plateau now because I realize I've been taking in a lot
Mhm.
and I've been learning a lot, and I will get to a point where I don't wanna hear anything else. I don't wanna think about it anymore. I'm like, I need to walk away from this and go, like, take a break 'cause I can't. I'm over
Something
it. I'm
else.
sick of it. I'm done.
Uh-huh.
And then something will restore that within me. But, I think there could be some of that perfectionism in a generator's process sometimes because we are people who are building over a lifetime. We're learning mastery over certain things.
Mhm.
And if we either aren't getting it just right yet or we're not there yet, or even these other things, like we have to ask for help. Like we don't feel it's just
Mhm.
right enough or good enough. It might, like there's lots of other contributing
Yeah.
factors in your design for sure, but that's definitely looking at it. Go
Mhm.
ahead.
I I can also kind of see it, and now that I'm like thinking of it, even in sometimes the way that we talk about generators is like I can see an imposter syndrome feeling coming from how we talk about, generators, they're the builders, they're the base, like they do the heavy lifting. Like I feel like you could have the imposter syndrome if you feel like what you're trying to do is almost shining too bright. Like you're shining out of the
Mhm.
group per se. You see what I'm
Yeah,
do you understand what I'm
and
saying?
I also think it's like if you're not lit up, if you're not, having that sacral response, because I started thinking when you were talking about the doing and the building and having all the energy, I know there's a generator out there listening right now that's like, I don't know that feeling. This was my feeling about work. And this is where I'm still, I feel like a fraud
Mhm,
because I'm supposed to be this lit up generator. Here I am, somebody that's supposed to love work and working. Well, no, not really. I mean,
mhm.
like, not in the way I've done it before, because 'cause I've been doing other people's work, but that does
Mhm,
make you feel and sometimes like a bit of a fraud because you're like, I don't really, but are you really lit up by what you're doing? Are you, really following your sacral? And so that's, I
mhm.
like your input on that too, as well, as far as that insight. I love it when you bring your projector insight into because I'm like, I don't always see it. You can see it, but I don't see sometimes. And so we talked about projectors. Now, reflectors, again, as I said at the offset, I don't know everything, and I've never personally worked with a reflector yet. I know of a couple, like in a group setting, but I've never had one come to me for a reading or anything like that yet. And but they do talk about some of the things that can be triggering in imposter syndrome. I mean, I think if you're a reflector listening, this may be something you struggle with because you probably have always felt your whole life that you're different than everybody else because you are.
Oh, I can see there probably would, like, ton of imposter syndrome because you just don't you have
Mhm.
so much openness. You'd like, "I don't
Right,
know.
and you reflect
I
your
don't know who
environment. You're
I
very
am."
affected by your environment as a reflector. Environment is everything they say for a reflector, and
Mhm,
there's, especially when you were younger or it was out of your control, let's say there were lots of, transitions in your life, like moving or new jobs or new schools, can trigger, they say, this imposter feeling because in general, you don't have your bearings yet, and I imagine as a reflector, because
mhm.
environment is so important, if you don't have a choice over your environment, of course, that can make it even more difficult for you because you're like, "Why don't I
Mhm,
feel like everybody else?" Everybody says I should be, feeling XYZ, but this doesn't feel right. This isn't right. But,
mhm,
the self-doubt and everything else can start to creep in. And that's, they are different than the rest of us in the sense that they're here to reflect back to us, who we are and how we're doing as a society, and
mhm.
if you don't have that awareness of yourself, I mean, I have seen in many groups and messages and stuff of reflectors of, like, how it was just, like, very illuminating to find out their type and that this thing that they've always felt
Mhm,
about themselves that they felt was so different and wrong, and now they can see it and they know it, and it just, like, changes everything because you realize, "I was
mm,
right. I was correct," and that's what I love about human design is that you can see and start trusting yourself again because there is no matter how much conditioning there is in the world or in your life, I should say, if you are paying attention and you get quiet enough and you get in tune enough with yourself, you spend enough time with yourself and really looking inwards, you will recognize that part of you, which is your design. That is, I do it like you see
mhm.
my hands, well, because I see it as just
Yeah.
there's the still
You're like,
small voice within, they call it, but it is also that knowingness part of you that is always there. And if you ever listen to teachings of Abraham Hicks talking about, we're here as humans, but our our higher self is here also. We're here together. And the higher self aspect of
Mhm,
yourself, which is the big part of you, right? the human part of you is the little part that comes in our little suit here and plays around. But it's
Right.
always there, and you always have communication with it. But it's never gonna like she always says, come down to what you're thinking in the sense of it's always staying at that vibration of what you truly are and who you truly are and your magnificence and everything is there for
Mhm.
you and everything's working out for you and you just have to, keep in tune with that. So she says that when you um Abraham says that when you are feeling this insecurity, this fear, this worry, that is a great indication that you are not in congruence with your higher self, meaning that's not true. This what you're feeling in this moment, whatever it is you're worried about or
Mm.
whatever you're afraid of or whatever it is you're feeling inadequate about, those feelings that make you feel that way is because you are misaligned with your higher self. You're like she calls it out of the vortex, meaning,
Mm.
emotion is what helps us understand where our alignment is, if that makes sense. And so
Mhm.
there is that part of you that knows who you truly are. It may be very quiet, it may be sleeping, being ready to be woken up, but it's there, and that's what human design and knowing your design and seeing it, and, like, when you have a session with someone who can look at your chart and show it to you in a way you haven't seen it before. Like I said, I've yet to have anyone tell me that is not me. There might be aspects of it that they may, like, not really jive
Mhm.
with, maybe certain gates or channels because it's like, um, it's almost like, therapy, occupational therapy, or physical therapy after an injury. You have to teach something how to, like, learning it. I'm doing this because 'cause I'm thinking about your dad with his broken arm and his thumb in a cast, It's like it's there.
Mhm.
His functioning arm is there, but it's gonna have to learn how to
Mhm.
move and how to be again to gain that strength.
'Cause it hasn't been.
Yeah,
It's just been so still.
yeah,
So it has to
but it knows how.
relearn the
It does,
movement.
and that's what I think happens
Mhm.
when you start digging into your design is you start to, that's been my experience of, like, I I knew these things and a certain part of me knew this, that this was like, if you're a sacral being and someone introduces you to your sacral response, you're like, "Oh, that's what that is. Oh, yeah, I've quite often not been listening to that. I did not know that that is what I'm supposed to be listening to."
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's very interesting. I kinda lost my thread there of trying to keep this on a path of getting us somewhere.
I think
Thanks.
it's a good path still.
But anyway, so there's so many things in your chart. Like I said, if you look at your open centers, we talked about type there. I think authority, when you can learn to, or when you understand that there is a way that helps you make correct, aligned decisions for you, which engenders self trust, is a
Mhm.
way to move past this imposter syndrome because it gives you something to ground into to know that you're doing it the right way. Because I think a lot of us, before you come into
Yeah.
this, you question everything because you just don't know. You're always looking for someone to tell you the right way to do things. And now you know
Mhm.
that if you know your type, strategy, and authority, that's the way for you to do things. And if you do it in that way, then your natural genius and everything that is the full expression of you, it just, is there and it comes alive. You don't really have to do anything else.
Mhm.
And but I think also really the things that make us our own unique geniuses are generally the things we worry about that are the fraud part of us. You know what I mean? Because it's
Mhm.
so innate. It's just there. It's just you. And society and, you know,
Yeah.
societal expectations and, um, like we talking about gender, we are talking about marginalized, all these marginalized communities. It's been intentional to make you feel that way. And it's my intention and Haley's
Mhm.
intention to let you know that it's a scheme. It's not true. And you are perfect the way you are. Even though there's no perfect, you're perfect the way you are. So, as you reflect on this episode, really, or this concept of imposter syndrome, we really hope we like started the conversation today, or maybe sparked something within you to challenge this idea that you are not smart enough, not good enough, or not an expert, or not talented enough to do the thing it is you want to do, or be who it is you want to be. We're here to say that that's just a lie. And go ahead and take a look at what you've done in your life. Look at your achievements with fresh eyes as someone who doesn't know you. Just be very, matter of fact, factual, and look at yourself and look at what you've accomplished and who you are, and not just like work things or school things, but like, you know what? I have 8 or 6 or 2 friends that really, really cherish me and come to me and tell me I'm valuable. My children love me. They think I am an amazing mom. I've done this in the community, or, oh, I wrote that really cool blog post, or, I made that really pretty drawing. Oh, I knitted that beautiful blanket for my girl. Just look at really the things and the what you have done in your life, and really start to value yourself and realize that, do those people think you're an imposter? No, they don't. You think I'm an imposter, Haley?
No.
I don't think you are
No.
either. I think you're amazing.
Oh, thanks.
But yeah, so just, and if you still doubt this, oh, even Bailey's getting involved. If you still doubt this, I also would say that I would love to, be the person that can help reflect it back to you if I can. Book a session with me. We can look at your design together, and I can help you see those places in your design that maybe you're not seeing, that can really help you move past this feeling of not being enough, not of being the person who can achieve the things that you want to in your life, because you absolutely can. There is no imposter syndrome. It's a scheme. It's all a lie. Any final thoughts on that, Haley?
To kind of paraphrase
Mhm.
how she ended the commencement speech, she said, "Ride the bike, feel the wind in your hair, feel the joy,
Oh, that was
feel
so
the
good when
love."
she said that. It was like, yeah, you're right. It's like, just
Great.
let it go. It's not true. It doesn't exist. You belong in the room. There's a place at the table, right? Live your life.
Yeah. Oh, she also said that, like, she has been in rooms with CEOs, like, with these powerful men, CEOs,
Mhm.
presidents, senators, all of this, and she's like, "You know what? They weren't smarter than me." She said, "All of the girls that I've taught to code, they could run laps
Mhm.
around them." She's like, "They're not smarter. They're not as smart as
Yeah.
you think
What'd
they
she
are."
say? But it's true. Yeah. So I really encourage you to check out that video. It's really great. And it'll get you feeling like you're
It
going to
was
take
great.
on the world tomorrow. Trust me. Okay. So let's wrap this up, Haley. So you know what that means. What time is it?
The Incarnation Cross of the
That is
Week.
correct. We wrap up each episode going over or exploring one incarnation cross, which there are in the human design system. There's 192 incarnation crosses, which, what is an incarnation cross? It is basically a theme that is derived from the top 4 gates in your chart on either side. So your sun and earth gates on either side of your chart create the incarnation cross. And it is this theme that is kind of present within your energy throughout your whole lifetime. And it's also kind of the path that you're walking on, your path and your purpose, right? So this week, we are going to talk about the right angle cross of the unexpected. And the right angle cross, the unexpected, and consists of, on the personality side of the chart, the sun is in gate 27, the gate of caring. Earth is in gate 28, okay, the game player. On the unconscious, the design side of your chart, left side of your chart in red, the sun is in gate 41, gated contraction. And the earth is in 31,
Okay.
gate of leading or influence.
So we have caring, game player, contraction, and leading or
Influence.
influence.
Okay, so if you were born under the right angle cross, the unexpected, you embody a nurturing spirit dedicated to supporting others during uncertain times and reminding them that life's unpredictability holds immense value. Through your personal journey, you've learned from past experiences and transformed those lessons into a deep wisdom. Your wisdom helps others redefine what truly matters. You understand that real wealth comes from the richness of relationships and the insights gained from life's challenges. With a vivid imagination, you envision a better future and see possibilities where others see obstacles. Your ability to transform pain into growth and guide others with compassionate leadership sets you apart. You lead by example, showing how to turn hardship into strength and approach the future with courage and purpose. Your mission is to help others transcend their past, embrace new possibilities, and create a life filled with meaning and connection. Lovely.
I love it. I love the line about richness of relationships because I feel like with the rise of social media, like that kind of gets eroded. But I really love the idea of having that richness.
And it is, what it's all about. And it's something that I have been really contemplating, and maybe my imposter syndrome is getting in the way, but myself keeps coming through in quieter moments or when I'm not resisting so much, meaning that, I really would like to have some sort of community of my own in the sense of creating a community and inviting others into it. I mean, when I first started this podcast, it's Human Design Hive, and I can't tell you how many times I have the imposter feeling around the fact that I named it a hive and I haven't built a hive yet. Like it's building in the sense that there are the listeners and there's the subscribers and there's the customers, but I haven't given them a place to go yet. And I feel like a fraud and an imposter because I haven't built it yet. And I am at the point where I'm just, and I think it's because I don't think I have the, like, I don't know how to do it. I won't do it like everybody else, and everybody's going to be disappointed. They're going to see I don't really, have a lot to offer. I've been doing all of it, seriously. But
I know.
but that's just that imposter syndrome because I always say to people that come to me with things they want to create, I'm like, it wouldn't be in your heart. It wouldn't be within you if it wasn't something that wants to come through you. So, if you're not on my email list, get on there because it's coming soon. If you don't want to wait and you want to tell me as you listen to this, yes, please make the community either leave a comment on this episode on Spotify, or you can send me a message there. You can send me an email. Let me know because, like, I really just want to create something where I'm there for you to really have you bring out in me what it is I want to share because I'm realizing that's how I shine, how I function. I respond to you. It's like bring out what it is that I have learned.
Oh my god, it's almost like you're a generator that needs
I'm
something
a
to
generator.
respond
I'm a line one
to.
generator. I gate 48. I got all the things. I'm like, I know. And, just where you guys in the community could get to know each other because that's where all the really fun stuff happens is when, we can be in conversation with each other and share our experiences because as we know, everybody's design is different. And a 2-4 generator is going to be different than a 2-4 projector or a 3-5 generator. It's just like all these things, all this richness. And so, hold me to it. It's coming. Y'all let me know how fast you need it. I'm getting it out there. And I know I've been saying that a lot, but there is things in the pike and I am just pushing past my imposter syndrome to deliver them to you. So
Because you know what?
Thank you.
It's not real.
It's a scheme. All right. Well, let's wrap this up, Haley. So I had a lot of fun talking with you today, and I thank you for listening. And until next time, bye for now.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.